Macbeth shall be king hereafter.
Full of scorpions is my mind.
What's done is done.
Life's but a walking shadow. Honor, love, a friend, but in their stead, curses.
Hello and welcome to this revision guide to the Shakespeare text Macbeth. Quick user's guide then, pause the video now to see how this resource could best be used. And we're going to be looking for the third and final time at the key character Macbeth at the end of the play. We're going to be looking at AO1, understanding what the play is about, and AO2, its language, form and structure. As you can see, this is the map of the royal family in medieval Scotland. Macbeth, of course, at this point will be top of the tree, taking the place of Duncan. We can't really look at Macbeth without studying the chain of being, and as we know, Macbeth would have started off just below Malcolm and Donalbain, but we now know that he's become king at this point, and so is the highest on the chain that a human being can get. We're going to be linking our thoughts on Macbeth then to the key themes outlined on the board there. And we're going to start this revision resource at Act 5, Scene 3, 5 and 7. This is just after he's met the witches then and is now returning to Dunsinane. Macbeth is now readying himself for battle against the English. He hears of his soldiers deserting him. Macbeth determines to fight to the death. He loses any sense of fear. Macbeth hears about his mentally sick wife, but doesn't listen. Macbeth hears of Lady Macbeth's death, but doesn't appear to listen. Macbeth compares himself to a baited bear, and Macbeth kills young Siward and says that no man or woman born can kill him. In the previous scene, Macbeth was called mad and fighting with valiant fury. His mood and temperament change rapidly over these scenes and almost appears to suffer withdrawal symptoms, as if he's addicted to power. Macbeth at this point then, by the end of the play, appears to be tearing himself apart due to the prophecies and his own hubris and ego. His dark side is fighting his logic and leadership skills. One side is telling him he can't be killed, while the other side knows that defeat is inevitable. Act 5, Scene 3, Macbeth accuses all the others of cowardice, that is, all his lords, all his troops, all his soldiers. He accuses them all of cowardice and appears slightly unstable. Please make notes while we watch the video of Macbeth in action on stage, and look out for how the Doctor might be thinking about him.
Bring me no more reports, let them fly, or till Burnham Wood remove to Dunsinane. I cannot taint with fear. Was the boy? Malcolm, was he not born of woman? The spirits that know all mortal consequences have pronounced me thus. Fear not, Macbeth. No man that's born of woman shall e'er have power upon thee. Then fly, false thanes, and mingle with the English epicures. The devil damn thee black, thou cream-faced loon. What got's there, that goose look?
There is 10,000.
Geese, Philip?
Soldiers, sir.
Prick thy face and over-red thy fear. And lily-livered boy. What soldiers? Patch. What soldiers wave face?
The English force, so please you.
Take your face, hence. Satan! I'm sick at heart when I behold. Satan, I say! This push will cheer me ever or disseek me now. I have lived long enough. My way of life has fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf, and that which should accompany old age as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends. I must not look to have, but in their stead kisses, not loud but deep, mouth honor, breath which the poor heart would fain deny and dare not. Satan!
What's your gracious pleasure?
What news more?
All is confirmed, my lord, which was reported.
I'll fight till from my bones my flesh be hacked. Give me mine armor.
It is not needed yet.
I'll put it on, send out more horses, scur the country round, hang those that talk of fear, give me mine armor! How does your patient, doctor?
Not so sick, my lord, as she is troubled with thick-coming fancies.
Cure her of that? Canst thou not? Minister to a mind diseased. Pluck from the memory a rooted sorrow. Raise out the written troubles of the brain, and with some sweet, oblivious antidote cleanse the stuffed bosom of that perilous stuff that weighs upon the heart.
Therein the patient must minister to himself.
Throw physic to the dogs. I'll none of it. Go. Ha! Put mine armor on. Satan! Send that. Doctor, the thanes fly from me. Capsir, dispatch. If thou couldst, doctor, cast the water of my land, find her disease and purge it to a sound and pristine health, I should applaud thee to the very echo, which should applaud again. Pull it off, I say! What rhubarb, senna, or what purgative drug could scour these English hences? Hear'st thou of them?
Aye. My good lord, your royal preparation makes us hear something.
I will not be afraid of death and bane till Burnham Forest come to Dunsinane.
Were I from Dunsinane away and clear profit again should hardly draw me here.
We learn no...
We then rejoin Macbeth in Act 5, Scene 5, where Macbeth seems to be even more unhinged as he begins to completely break down before the final confrontation.
Hang out our banners on the outward walls! The cry is still, they come. Our castle's strength will laugh a siege to scorn. Here let them lie till famine and the ague eat them up. What's that noise?
It is the cry of women, my good lord.
I have almost forgot the taste of fears. The time has been my senses would have cooled to hear a night shriek, and my fellow of hair would at a dismal treatise rouse and stir as life were in it. I have supped full with horrors, direness familiar to my slaughterous thoughts, cannot once start me. Wherefore was that cry?
The Queen, my lord, is dead.
She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow. And tomorrow. And tomorrow. Creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour up on the stage. And then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Now comes to use thy tongue as story quickly.
Gracious my lord, I should report that which I say I saw, but know not how to do it.
Well, say, sir.
As I did stand my watch upon the hill, I looked toward Burnham, and anon methought the wood began to move.
Liar! And slave!
Let me endure your wrath, if it be not so. Within this 3 mile, may you see it coming. I say, a moving grove.
Thou speakst false, upon the next tree shalt thou hang, alive, till famine cling thee. If thy speech be sooth, I care not if thou dost for me as much. I pull in resolution, and begin to doubt the equivocation of the fiend that lies like truth. Fear not, till Burnham wood do come to Dunsinane, and now a wood comes toward Dunsin. Home! Home! Hold out! If this which he avouches does appear, there is no flying hence, nor tarrying here. I begin to be weary of the sun, and wish the estate of the world were now undone. Ring the alarm bell! Blow, wind! Come, rack! At least we'll die with harness on our back!
As you can see, Macbeth repeats many lines or many parts previously mentioned in the play, very similar then to Lady Macbeth in her recollections before her own death. Let's begin to analyse some extracts then from this section of the play. Shakespeare presents us with a man desensitised by horror as he sees it so often. This is also due to his perceived invulnerability. The woman crying off stage represents Scotland, who is in pain due to his tyrannical rule. Shakespeare repeats the image of Macbeth's hair, not unfixed as it was at the start, but now calm in the face of death. Shakespeare has Macbeth admit his slaughterous ideas as he begins to build Macbeth as a butcher and killer at the end of the play, an image very similar to his portrayal as a strong and unstoppable warrior at the start. Macbeth is then told that his wife has died. Shakespeare has Macbeth utter the ambiguous line, "She should have died hereafter," perhaps meaning she would have died of old age or after the battle when there would have been more of a chance to grieve her death, or it could mean that everyone dies and he simply doesn't care. Shakespeare uses a polysynton here to present to us the endlessness of Macbeth's situation or the hopelessness he feels. The plosive p sound emphasises this in the next line, which adds to the sense of anger or resentment to the lines. This creates a depressing tone that foreshadows the slow, drawn-out death of Macbeth. Shakespeare repeated the symbolic idea of a candle here, a metaphor for life or Lady Macbeth herself. Macbeth adds to the sense of meta-theatre here, as Macbeth presents himself as a player that struts and frets upon the stage. This also implies that Macbeth feels he's acting as a king, yet can't perform the role as well as a real king would. Let's rejoin the play then in Act 5, Scene 7, as Macbeth braces himself for the final confrontation.
They've tied me to a stake. I cannot fly, but bear-like, I must fight the course. What's he that was not born of woman? Such a one am I to fear, or none.
show thy face. If thou beest slain and with no stroke of mine, my wife and children's ghosts will haunt me still. I cannot strike at wretched kerns whose arms are hired to bear their staves. Either thou, Macbeth, or else my sword with an unbattered edge I sheathe again undeeded. Fortune, let me find him, and more I beg not.
Make all our trumpets speak. Give them all breath. Why should I play the Roman fool and die at mine own sword?
As you heard there, he compares himself to a bear with the key quote, "They've tied me to a stake. I cannot fly, but bear-like I must fight the course." The statement here emphasises that Macbeth feels he's got no choice but to continue to fight to the death. Shakespeare chances us to see Macbeth as a man who's blaming others for trapping him. They could be the witches who trapped him, or it could be the armies of Malcolm that surround him. Macbeth uses the Elizabethan practice of bear baiting here, where a powerful animal is trapped and cannot escape, threatened by dogs. Shakespeare presents Macbeth as a criminal, a man who is trapped by law for the crimes that he's committed. The trap could even be the stage itself that Macbeth cannot escape, or the spell the witches have placed him under, or even the restrictions of the scene, as the scenes at this point are short and simple and change rapidly from Dunsinane to Malcolm and back again. Here's some key quotes then from this set of scenes. And then we rejoin for the final confrontation, Act 5, Scene 8. Macbeth boasts that no one can kill him to Macduff. After Macduff reveals his Caesarean birth, Macbeth refuses to fight. Macduff says that Macbeth will be exhibited in captivity. Macbeth decides to go down fighting and is killed. Macduff gives Macbeth's head to Malcolm. Both sides of Macbeth are represented by Shakespeare here. He's still the brave fighter he was at the start of the play, willing to fight hard for the crown, but he's lost his heart and reason to fight. His main motive is still present. He wants to die a man and a soldier, the way, of course, he lived.
Why should I play the Roman fool and die at mine own sword? Whilst I see lives, the gashes do better upon them.
Turn, hellhound. Turn.
Of all men else I have avoided thee, but get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already.
I have no words. My voice is in my sword! I'll lose a slaver!
Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born.
Despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped.
Accursed be that tongue that tells me so, for it hath cowed my better part of man. And be these juggling fiends no more believed, that palter with us in a double sense, and keep the word of promise to our ear, but break it to our hope. I'll not fight with thee.
Then yield thee, coward, and live. To be the show and gaze of the time, we'll have thee as our rarer monsters are, painted upon a pole, and under it, here may you see the tyrant.
I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet. Though Burnham would become to Dunsinane, and thou posed being of no woman born, yet I will try the last. Lay on, Macduff. Damned be him who first cries, "Ho, enough."
Let's look closer then at this the dialogue between Macbeth and Macduff in this final scene. Shakespeare compares Macbeth to a classic Roman general who, if defeated, would be honourable and commit suicide. Macbeth, in contrast, vows to keep killing. Shakespeare uses the metaphor of a battery to describe Macbeth. He is charged with supernatural power and anger. He is presented as a powerful threat to Macduff. Shakespeare contrasts Macbeth's verbosity and lingual dexterity with Macduff's language of a warrior, simple and honest. Macbeth repeats the language of the witches and the supernatural by personifying Macduff's sword as a weapon that seeks his death. He utters one of his last lines and is almost thankful that he got this far. The adjective charmed implies wealth, power, and the supernatural. Shakespeare implies that Macbeth feels he's ready to die. Macbeth's response to Macduff's revelation is one of a man realising the truth. The witches have manipulated him. He refers to the witches as juggling fiends who gave him prophecies and double meanings. His language decays to the simple sentences of a soldier. At the end of his life, their spell, the witches' spell, is shattered. Shakespeare presents Macbeth as a rarer monster and a tyrant, clearly comparing him to the great evil rulers of the world. Macduff's language implies Macbeth is already dead as he reads the lines on his tombstone. Macbeth's last lines are defiant and proud. He is determined to die as he lived and entered the play on his feet with a sword in his hand. Shakespeare challenges us to see Macbeth's fate. In the last line he says, "He will be damned and go to hell." Macbeth is determined to be a brave warrior and not die as a coward by surrendering. The play appears circular as Macbeth starts and ends the play in the same way. This could be the last bid to prove his manliness to Lady Macbeth and the world. Now, as we can see there, Macbeth dies the death of a dictator. I will not yield to be baited by the rabble's curse. Macbeth refuses to surrender as history has told him what may happen if he does. The death of a dictator is always a public one. The picture in the background here shows Queen Jezebel, who is a famous example of that Shakespeare would have heard of. Queen Jezebel famously forced a whole nation to worship the devil and was eventually thrown out of a window. Remind you of anyone else jumping to their death? I think it's time now we need to start looking at Macbeth's sanity. Is he in fact insane by the conclusion of his life? The evidence. He doubts his sanity when he sees Banquo's ghost. He sees his lords as predators, Russian bears, Hyston tigers, armed rhinoceros. He questions the rules of nature, but he is assertive and calm in the face of death. He is still in control of his own and others' actions, using imperatives in a commanding tone, even in the face of his own demise. He knows he will die and go to hell. Macbeth struggled with his own weakness and has come to terms with his actions, explaining to Macduff that he has led a charmed life. He is clear he is at fault and wants to die as he lived the majority of his life, a fighter. It is his acceptance of his fate that brings him sanity. As an audience, we are engaged by Macbeth's wobble when he sees the ghost, wondering if this will be his downfall, but this is a device used to create tension. Macbeth's narrative is, emotionally at least, a circular one. He ends as he began, covered in blood, fighting for the throne and the king. This then is a graph of, you've got Macbeth there and Banquo. We can see from the start Macbeth is a brave warrior. Some quotes there to prove it. As the play develops, Macbeth struggles with his moral code and compass as he battles his greed for power. And by the time of his death, Macbeth has come to terms with his own moral decline and accepts he will go to hell for what he's done. He wants to leave this earth as he came in, a fighter on his feet. This then would give you an essay plan for Macbeth with some quotes to prove it. You can see at the bottom there 4 questions that might be worth considering for a higher level answer. What, by the end of the play, does Shakespeare want us to think? Shakespeare presents Macbeth as a man tormented by his own ambition and lust for power. He begins the play a brave fighter, but is corrupted by the women in his life to seek the throne. It is this ambition that is his hamartia or tragic flaw. He doesn't recognise the fact he's being manipulated until the end of the play. To really feel Macbeth's conclusion, the 2015 version of the play is probably the most gripping.
And now the wood comes toward Dunsinane. Ring the alarm bell. Arm. And out.
Tyrant! Show thy face!
There is no flying hence, no tallying here. I begin to be aweary of the sun, and wish the estate of the world were now undone. Blow wind. Come. Rack. At least we'll die with harness on our back. They have tied me to a stake. I cannot fly. But bear-like, I must fight the course. What's he that was not born of woman? Such a one am I to fear or none. Why should I play the Roman fool and die on mine own sword, whilst I see lives?
The curse is to better upon them! Turn, hellhound. Turn. Upon mine health I've avoided thee, but get thee back! My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already.
You'll have no one. My muscles and my sword.
Thou losest labor! As easy mayst thou the entrenchant air with thy keen sword and breast as make me bleed!
crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of women born.
Spare thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee. Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. Cursed be the tongue that tells me so. So I set out my better part of man. I'll not fight with me. Then yield, big coward. And live to be the showman gaze of the time. I will have thee, as our rare monsters are. Painted upon a pole, and under it, here may you see the tyrant, Macbeth.
I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, and to be baited with the rabble's curse. Though Burnham would be come to Dunsinane, now opposed, being of no woman born. Yet, I will try the last.
Before my body,
I throw my warlike shield.
my own Macduff.
And damn thee. First cries. Old. Enough!
Let's recap the play then to grade 5 standard. From the outset, Macbeth is presented as a heroic warrior, and he begins to change when told by the witches that he'll be King of Scotland, exhibiting early signs of greed and ambition. As the play develops, Macbeth kills or orders the death of several people, including Duncan, Banquo, Fleance, and Macduff's family. The effects of all this murder and guilt he feels turned Macbeth into a paranoid wreck. He can't sleep and worries that everyone knows who really killed Duncan. By the conclusion, Macbeth accepts who he has become and vows to kill anyone in his way. He's killed by Macduff, once again misreading the prophecies of the witches. Let's then listen as we briefly recap then some of the key points we need to make.
Yo, Big Macbeth, the one and only. Mac's not hot, never hot. Skiddy-cat-cat, boom. Look like the innocent flower, maybe the serpent under it. Had he not resembled my father, as he slept I had done it. But innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Is this a dagger, which I see before me? Hold tight Banquo, my brother, he's got a pumpy. Big team. Hold tight my man Duncan, he's got a frisbee. I stab, stab, stab with the dagger, getting those titles. Killing that king man. Hold tight my wife lady. Spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here. Oh, full of scorpions, is my mind here. I cry of women within, so far fair a day I have not seen of this dead butcher, and his fiend like queen. I tell her Mac's not hot, I tell her Mac's not hot. The girl told me take off your jacket. I said babes, Mac's not hot, never hot. I tell her Mac's not hot, never hot. I tell her Mac's not hot, never hot. The girl told me take off your jacket. I said babes, Mac's not hot, never hot. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Had he not resembled my father, as he slept I had done it. Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Is this the dagger, which I see before me? Spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here. Oh, full of scorpions, is my mind dear. I cry of women within, so far and fair a day I have not seen of this dead butcher, and his fiend like queen. The thing goes pop, pop, cut, cut, cut. Skitty cut, pop, pop, and the pop, pop, boom. Skrrr, cook, 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 dum, dum. Boom, boom. You don't know. Mac's not hot, never hot. Check out the next video to see the explanation of the quotation.
Okay, let's look now at some essay skills that we could use when writing about Macbeth. We have a short essay plan here. We start with an overview, then looking at the start of the player extract, then the middle, and then of course what's changed by the end. To get a grade 7, I need to give a clear overview of the character, analyse the text frequently, make original points, give evidence and knowledge of structure, and use some, but not overloaded with, subject terminology. Today I'm going to look at the relationship between Banquo and Macbeth and their relationship in an extract. What would we expect to see from the two? Well, we'd expect to see Banquo being honest and good and friendly towards Macbeth, and we'd expect Macbeth, if it's from the start of the play, to be openly honest with Banquo. But as the play develops, we know he begins to lie to him as he begins to suspect that Banquo thinks he killed Duncan. This is the extract that we're going to look at then. You can see it's Banquo talking to the audience first, and then Macbeth talking to him and calling him chief guest. We're going to look at the opening here first then. We need to think, when does this scene take place? How does Banquo feel about Macbeth? We need to think about how Macbeth feels about Banquo and what language techniques are being used. We need to think about what we expect from the characters. Does this extract fulfill our expectations? And we need to think about the significant points here that would be worth saying. So we need to think about maybe 4 or 5 things we can say based on the extract you can see. Here's some ideas then of the different parts you might notice as you read through the extract. Banquo is hesitant about Macbeth. Personal pronouns reinforce his suspicions and imply Banquo is secretive and wants to hide his jealousy and fear from Macbeth. Banquo is scared at the games Macbeth seems to be playing. Thou playest suggests Banquo feels that Macbeth isn't taking it seriously, almost playing the witch's games. The concrete noun root suggests not only the Banquo comparing his own destiny to Macbeth's, but also foreshadows Macbeth's view of him. Macbeth sees Banquo as a weed that must be torn out from the ground before he can be successful. Banquo speaks as if Macbeth is there, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine, implying a jealousy of Macbeth always taking the limelight, which, contrastingly, makes Banquo always his shadow. Alternatively, this could suggest that Banquo is aware of Macbeth and the position he's gained. You can see here I'm zooming in on particular things I can say about the character and making different points, in this case 4 of them. I'm thinking about which words stand out to me and what I can say about them in as much depth as possible. This will all be something I'd think about before even starting to write my answer. I would then look to give a clear overview of the character, analysis, original points, and my evidence with subject terminology. You can see on the board there, that's how I'd write my answer, giving the technical language there in blue and some of these original points then in red. My next paragraph would begin with as the scene develops. Let's look then in more detail at how this is actually constructed. I start by making a comment on the whole text. I then give a short quote that suggests something about relationships or the character. I then say something about what's implied about the character's emotions. I make a comment on the atmosphere or structure. I've clearly analysed the word root in this case. And I've double checked at my end of my answer to just make sure that technical language has been used. I'd also look to add possible alternatives if possible. You can see in red the most important parts there to achieve the grade, and in black are the things that I'd want to add to improve even further. Let's take a look at the whole scene then. This is the continuation of the scene we just analysed, and listen to how that might be performed.
Here's our chief guest.
If he had been forgotten, it had been as a gap in our great feast and all thing unbecoming.
Tonight we hold a solemn supper, sir, and I'll request your presence.
Let your highness command upon me, to the which my duties are with the most indissoluble tie for ever knit.
Ride you this afternoon?
Aye, my good lord.
We should have else desired your good advice, which still hath been both grave and prosperous in this day's council, but we'll take tomorrow. Is far you ride?
As far, my lord, as 'twill fill up the time twixt this and supper. Go not my horse the better, I must become a borrower of the night for a dark hour or twain.
Oh, fail not our feast.
My lord, I will not.
We hear our bloody cousins are bestowed in England and in Ireland, not confessing their cruel parricide, filling their hearers with strange invention. But of that, tomorrow, when therewithal we shall have cause of state craving us jointly. Hie you to horse, adieu till you return at night. Goes friends with you.
Aye, my good lord, our time does call upon us.
I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I do commend you to their backs. Farewell.
Now, we haven't talked about Macbeth yet, so think which lines of his stand out there. It's important to note, of course, at this point that he's lying, he doesn't trust Banquo, and how's that shown through the language choice and devices that Shakespeare uses? What does it say about the character, his emotions, how he feels? Look at the points there for a grade 7, think what you might write. These are the points I might focus on then. If we now look at an extract from Lady Macbeth and Macbeth, speaking and behaving, another pair of characters you could be asked about together. I noticed Lady Macbeth there starts off by saying, was the hope drunk? The oxymoron hope drunk implies Lady Macbeth sees Macbeth as out of control and not fully in command. The tone here is rude and suggestive of her distaste for Macbeth, unless he is willing to do as she suggests. The enjambment here implies that Lady Macbeth wants him to assert himself, implying she expects him to interrupt or that she wants him to reflect on what his hope should be. You can see I've done deep exploration there using my knowledge of Lady Macbeth to say something about the characters. But what could I say about these 3 arrows here? What do those tell us about Lady Macbeth's tone how she feels, and the relationship between the two. Again, pause the video, see what you can come up with. This is likely to be how the question's going to be asked then. Write about how blank, and it could be a character there, or it could be a theme, is presented in the play. The word presented implies then this is a creation that Shakespeare has made here, and we need to think why he's choosing to present it in a certain way or put it on stage in a certain way. The examiner will clearly give you a couple of bullet points to guide you, refer to the play as a whole, and show understanding of characters' events in the play, suggesting then that you should look at the whole play from the beginning to the middle and then finally to the end. Here's some key details then, key information about how or what you should include. And if that's new information to you, please pause and read this through more thoroughly. A possible 40-minute plan then to use in your exam response and how you might divide the time. And finally, a quote from the end of the play, which is what this video of course has been about, and what you might say about it. A good idea would be to make notes from this screen and then flip your notes over and see how much you can remember. Thank you very much then for listening to this video regarding the Shakespeare text Macbeth. And I'll leave you with a last account of the real Macbeth.
500 years, until in the early 17th century, the famous English playwright William Shakespeare revived the tale and used it as the basis of his latest play. First performed in 1606, it would eventually become one of the most regularly performed and highly acclaimed plays ever penned in the English language. Interestingly, unlike the Macbeth from the play, very little historical evidence exists to suggest that the historical Macbeth was a tyrant at all, and arguably he had as good a claim as any to the throne, and a better one than many kings throughout history.